Boy, what if people would come to your church and say, that was the friendliest experience I've ever had? And they almost act as though they're shocked that it took place in the church. I hope, my prayer is that every church in America would have that type of interaction when new people stepped on their campus for the first time. But the reality is that's not true. And very few churches in America actually give any thought and any practice to how to put the best foot forward for people that show up for the very first time. Why does this matter? Well, think about it even in your own personal life. When you invite guests to come over for the very first time to have dinner, maybe hang out, play some games, or watch the game at your house, typically we do a few things. We clean up, we put all the little things away, we make sure the bathrooms are freshened up and appealing. We do our best at putting together a great dish, and even the way that we present the food, we want it to be done in a way that people admire what we've cooked and what we've prepared for. Why wouldn't we do the same and not even more than that when we invite people in to experience something that could change their entire eternity? Friends, the guest experience is critical in the life of a church. It is critical when it comes to starting a new church that's going to make a difference in the community as well. It's interesting what even George Barna's research says. It says that it indicates that 70% of all people who visit a church will make up their mind about coming back before the pastor even gets up to speak. They've even dialed it down to the point of 7 minutes on the campus. Most people will make up their decision whether or not they want to come back to the church. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us the guest experience is critical. And so you've got to pay attention to this and do everything you can to give people a great experience as though you're expecting them to actually come. One question just for us to wrestle with, and we're not going to necessarily answer it today, but is how does this then even translate into a digital experience and what people experience on the other end of our programs being, let's say, shared live through Facebook? I think we need to know that the quality matters. We don't want to just put something out there. And at the same time, this is an incredible front door for people to observe who we are and what we're about. And we found that digital experience is actually the greatest bringer of new people in the doors of our church, that they've usually watched us even for a month or two before they step doors in the life of our church. Let me give you this exercise, and this is a great exercise to run with your leadership teams, your staff teams, your launch team, if you're in the launch team development. And this is all you need. You just need to go find some Post-it notes. And what I want you to do is I want you to give your team a stack of Post-it notes and tell them, I want you to write down every question that a guest has to answer from the moment they leave their driveway, they attend the church, and they get back in their car to head home. What is every question that a guest is wrestling through, trying to find an answer? It may be things like, where do I park? Where do I walk in? What do I do with my children? You're getting the picture. One Post-it note per question. And then kind of give them, say, 2-3 minutes just to write out as many as they possibly can, and then begin to organize them on a whiteboard in order based on what people would do from the moment they leave their driveway all the way to the other end at the end of church and they're walking back into their car. What you'll do is you will give more time in those 3 minutes of thinking about the guest experience than most churches in America ever give it. And the reality is, if we know these guests are asking these questions, why wouldn't we go above and beyond to make sure that we're answering them before they even have to ask those questions? Here's some basics that you really need to pay attention to and think through when it comes to creating a great guest experience. Number one, web presence. You've got to have a stellar web experience now. And I know we all know someone that does some web stuff. This is where you want to spend a little bit extra money and go ahead and work with a professional group out there. For instance, there are groups like Church Plant Media. I've used them for years. I know a lot of church planters that have used them. They have great deals out there for church planters, and they will help you design something that is workable, host your sermons, and giving links and much more. So you want to work with an organization like that that can help you get a template, get you up and running, and it has a clean, functionable use, and it's friendly to any user that comes. Now, when it comes to how your web presence acts, who is your web presence there for? Is it from insiders or for outsiders? Most church websites are blended of two, which isn't necessarily a good thing because it's hard to know where I'm supposed to go, what this is all about. I want to encourage you to think about the outsider. The language you use needs to be more focused on the outsider than it does on the insider when it comes to the website. Are you going after Christians just in the way that the words that you use and the phrases that you use on your website? Or are you being a place in which the truth seeker could come and go, man, this may be the place I could find my answers. I need to go and show up on Sunday morning. So give it some thought. Be intentional when it comes to your web presence. The right person also needs to be the first contact. And this is at every layer. This is when the phone rings, who's answering the phone? This is when people are walking up from outside the car. Who is the very first person that they interact with? You want your most extroverted, your best people out there on the sidewalk, greeting people, answering questions, walking people where they need to go. This is not a place to put your most introverted people where you kind of question, do they even like people? In that position. There is a role on the guest services team for everybody, but not everybody is going to be a sidewalk greeter. And then you want to train your greeters, how to meet people, how to greet people. This is such an important factor for me that every weekend I'm out there on the sidewalk. I'm watching our guest services team, how they interact, making sure they're doing it the way that we want them to do it. Because again, we hope to be called the friendliest church in Orlando. And so we're going to be very intentional about what we do and how we do it. Think about the voicemail. When they call and they have to leave a voicemail, is the voice on the other end of that, hey, please leave a message. Is it a friendly and warm, inviting voice? Then you want to have clear signage. And I would encourage you to have clear signage from the moment that people begin to drive onto your campus all the way through every experience. If we know they're looking for certain questions to be answered, like where are the bathrooms, we need to have very clear signage pointing people where the bathrooms are, where the auditorium is. And again, it comes to the verbiage that we choose to use as well. Is it a sanctuary? Well, that's kind of a churchy word. How many non-Christians actually know what it means to go into the sanctuary? It's an auditorium. I would encourage you to just use that kind of common language, what people tend to use. And then at the same time, guest services, instead of an information or welcome table. What if I don't want to be welcome? What if I don't need information? Am I going to stop by there? Guest services is kind of the go-to phrase, whether or not it's in retail centers or even hotels. And we can get a lot of great cues from places like airports and hotels and retail centers as to the common language that is people are used to. And why shouldn't we just adopt that kind of language when it comes to how we operate in the life of the church? Think through your publications. What are we going to push out? What kind of information are we going to make available? Do a great job at this. Now, being on this side of the pandemic, publications are kind of down, and that's okay. Think through about how we could actually create it from a digital publication standpoint. We utilize QR codes, and we've created a digital program that is updated on a weekly basis, and we include everything in there from small group questions to even sign up for different events that are coming around the corner. And so there's a lot more that we can honestly do, and it saves us money doing it in a digital way versus printed publications. Think through the atmosphere. And I would go through, your senses. How do they feel? How do they smell? What are people seeing? All those things make a difference. One of the churches that I've attended once, that every season that the weather changed, they would get this horrific sewage smell coming up through the men's bathroom. And it was simply a plumbing issue, but they never actually paid anybody. They just dealt with it for a couple weeks until it went away. It was putrid. I happened to be in the building when it was happening, and I just about knocked me over dead. And I can't believe anybody would actually come and sit through an hour service with that kind of rancid smell going through the building. As we talked to him, it ended up bringing out a plumber. It was $1,500, easy fix, and never happened again. But is that worth $1,500 to make the right atmosphere? 100%. And lastly, it's just overall hospitality. How are we following up with people? Are we making the next steps clear? And it's all about just the next step and making sure it's small enough. See, churches are really, really good at answering questions that honestly people aren't actually asking. So we need to pay attention. What questions are they really asking, and making sure that we're making those connections. Here's the reality when it comes to your church experience. People don't invite people to average. Think about the last time that you went out to eat and you just went to an average restaurant. You weren't posting about it. You weren't telling all your friends, oh man, you got to go check out that restaurant. It was average. No, we tell people about the great, fantastic experiences we've had. And the same thing's true for our churches. People aren't going to invite people to attend church if it's just an average experience. People also aren't going to visit or invite their friends, invite their family if they're embarrassed by the product. And so you want to make sure you go above and beyond what we do. Is it catering? Is it safe for people to actually invite their friends? Are you encouraging them to bring their friends and their family members to come to different events as well? Here's some basics to guest experience. Continue to innovate, continue to explore, and let's do everything we can, again, to see people come to Jesus.